This is wild. People are saying that Jake Paul lost hundreds of millions of dollars on the fight that he was supposed to win. But that Anthony Joshua went against the tongue sign script and pounded him out. And what happened? Look at what happened. Anthony Joshua allegedly, kind of suspiciously, was involved in an accident that almost took his life. It took the life of 2 other people. So a lot of people are questioning.
Breaking news just shattered the internet, turning everything wildly upside down. And I mean, we're witnessing pure chaos everywhere right now tonight. Jake Paul is reportedly on the move, slipping out of the country after these explosive reports emerged about the Joshua incident. And people are spiraling, losing their minds trying to understand what's really happening here. What actually unfolded behind those closed doors? And more importantly, why is this all surfacing right now? Sources say there's panic, intense damage control unfolding behind the scenes, and this sudden disappearance that's triggering some serious questions that nobody seems to have clear answers for. Is this a clever escape strategy, some calculated legal maneuver, or are we watching something far bigger unfold right before our eyes? Stay locked in, because the details coming next could genuinely change everything you thought you knew about this shocking saga forever. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this could rewrite the entire narrative.
I actually nice to get that girl on.
What's going on?
What's up, Floyd?
I can have what I want.
What you mean with the camera?
Oh, he got camera too.
So what you supposed, who you supposed to be?
I'm just working, man.
What happened? You're not tough anymore since your loss? What happened since your loss? Yo, we gonna bust him up, guys?
I told you before, put that
Yo,
camera
let's
down.
bust him up. Where you running, Jake? Where you going since your fight? Since you lost? What's up, Jake?
The first spark that turns a quiet rumor into a raging wildfire isn't proof. It's not documents. And it's definitely not patience or restraint. It's that exact moment when the words federal agents and celebrity mansion land in the same sentence together. And suddenly, the internet flips a switch. Everyone online becomes a part-time investigator with a full-time imagination running on overdrive. The second those 2 ideas collide in a headline, you can almost see the internet explode in real time, with everyone convinced they've cracked the code, stitching together clues like they're unraveling some massive conspiracy. It's crazy how fast people shift from passive watchers to full-blown detectives, building complex theories out of tiny fragments of information and filling in the blanks with whatever makes the story feel bigger, darker, and more dramatic.
Confirmed that Jake Paul's home was being raided by the FBI. News station helicopters got footage and pictures of Jake Paul's house being
Oh, they taking his guns and stuff. So there's got to be something gun related. Like, damn. But that's a sticky situation right there.
Photos show the FBI SWAT team seizing guns, several guns. According to the local ABC station, the weapons included a long gun that was next to the hot tub in the backyard. This search is part of an ongoing investigation, and no arrests.
Reports of an FBI search at Jake Paul's Calabasas home did not land like normal news at all. And let me tell you why that matters. Because normal news doesn't arrive with helicopters hovering overhead, tactical gear that looks straight out of a military operation, sealed warrants no one can read, and that heavy, uncomfortable silence from officials that makes people start filling in every single blank with whatever storyline keeps them most hooked. This wasn't just, oh, something happened at a celebrity's house. This felt like a full-scale production, packed with all the ingredients of a major event. The visuals alone were enough to push people into overdrive. Because when you see that level of law enforcement presence, your mind instantly starts asking what could possibly demand that kind of response. And when nobody's talking, when no official explanation drops, that silence turns into a vacuum the internet rushes to fill with speculation, theories, and increasingly wild narratives about what must be unfolding behind the scenes.
Jake Paul's house got raided by the FBI. What could this guy be possibly into now?
Connect outside of YouTube. Twitter was buzzing with photos and videos of SWAT teams at Jake Paul's house yesterday. And no, they are not fake. The FBI and a SWAT team showed up at Jake Paul's house with a search warrant. The search began at 6 a.m. in connection with an ongoing investigation, according to FBI spokeswoman Laura I. Miller. Jake was not at home at the time. Unfortunately for T channels and everyone else that wants to know the scoop, the judge sealed the search warrant affidavit, so we don't actually know too much about why.
When officials don't publicly explain what they were searching for during a moment like this, the internet does what it always does, without fail, and starts building an entire narrative out of vibes, old headlines that may or may not even matter, and the core assumption that every famous person is basically one bad decision away from sprinting through an airport terminal like a contestant on some high-stakes reality show trying to dodge elimination. People begin connecting dots that might not even belong in the same picture, dragging up past controversies, old tweets, previous incidents and stitching them together into one sweeping story that feels true, not because it's proven, but because it's dramatic and confirms what people already suspected. The internet doesn't need official statements when it can crowdsource an entire conspiracy theory in just a few hours, with everyone adding their own piece to the puzzle until you're left with this massive, elaborate explanation for everything that may or may not have any grounding in actual reality.
Thoughts on AJ and the families?
Yeah, it's all prayers and blessings for Cena and Lots and Anthony, and I've kept them in my prayers, and it's such a tragic situation that we don't wish upon anybody, and I'm sending love to all of them and keeping them in our prayers, and I think everybody else should do the same, and we have so much love, and things are so much bigger than boxing and living life, and we're just all blessed to be here, and we all have to be grateful for that, because
This is the moment where the mood quietly changes, drifting away from simple celebrity trouble and sliding straight into full-blown celebrity mythology. And this is exactly why that difference matters so much. Because Jake Paul is not viewed like an ordinary public figure who occasionally stumbles into controversy. He is consumed like an ongoing series that somehow always earns another season. No matter what unfolds, the newest episode arrives wrapped in a familiar kind of chaos that feels almost written in advance, because it is not just about law enforcement appearing at a famous person's gated mansion, which alone would be dramatic enough, but also about a fresh surge of allegations claiming his fights are carefully staged, tightly controlled, and designed more to shield a brand than to truly risk a jaw in real combat. At the very same time, commentators and analysts step in, arguing that the matchup was completely absurd on paper from the start, because it throws together a YouTuber-turned-boxer and a heavyweight champion who has spent years and years surviving in the deepest end of the sport. In that argument, the size gap, the pedigree divide, and the raw brutality and danger of heavyweight boxing are treated like physics, like unbreakable laws of nature, because physics does not care about marketing budgets, social media followers, or how many views your training clips pull in. Then there is the other side of the internet doing what it always does best, insisting with total certainty that anything that looks too profitable, too convenient, or too perfectly timed must also be too fake to be real. Because for some people, it is impossible to accept that capitalism alone is more than capable of creating nonsense and bizarre spectacles without any hidden conspiracy or elaborate master plan pulling the strings behind it all.
You lose hundreds of millions of dollars, people do not take it too kindly, and I can see the Vegas odds if they're saying, look, he wins, he always wins, it's going to happen in the 6th round. But no, Anthony Joshua said, not on my clock. I'm going to break his jaw in two. Two, Johnny. Make it 2, Utah. Make it 2. What do you guys think about this? I don't know. Is this conspiracy theory? Is there some truth to it? I don't know. But it does seem pretty suspicious that it happens.
This is the exact point where the alleged fleeing story slips into the spotlight and begins to gain real momentum. Because once the public repeats a claim enough times, across enough platforms, it stops sounding like a question or a possibility and turns into a narrative beat that everyone quietly accepts as canon. The idea circulating through forums, comment sections, and endless social media threads is that new reports about this Joshua incident surfaced almost out of thin air. Pressure suddenly tightened from every direction, and Jake Paul allegedly decided that the safest place to be while all this drama exploded was somewhere that was not here, somewhere well outside the immediate blast zone. That story spreads at lightning speed because it presses 3 powerful buttons at once: celebrity scandal, sports fraud suspicion, and the cinematic image of a famous figure slipping away. Dodging consequences by hopping countries like it is nothing more than a wardrobe change or a casual vacation choice. Even if none of it is confirmed by any credible source, it survives and multiplies because it is entertaining, and entertainment always moves faster than paperwork, official statements, or verified facts. That is precisely why claims about scripts and fixed fights feel believable to some fans, even as officials and promoters push back with growing frustration, insisting that professional bouts cannot be arranged or fixed without severe legal consequences that would erase careers and entire organizations. Skepticism does not need proof to stay alive out in the wild, because it is constantly fueled by the sport's history of past scandals and by the audience's understanding that spectacle sells better than subtlety, that drama pulls more clicks than clean, straightforward competition.
For me, in my opinion, I think it's scripted a little bit because, of the weight difference, and, Joshua is a former champion, and also, he's current, he's active, and this is going to be the first time that we see Paul, fighting an active fighter. We seen the Mike Tyson, that was all fun, that was cute, it's fun and games and stuff, but now you're dealing with a real professional, and so we'll see how it ends up like I said.
Jake Paul's entire boxing persona lives right on that fragile line where entertainment bleeds into sport. And that positioning is no accident, because his rise has never been only about punches landed or training camps documented, but about attention engineering and brand building on an enormous scale. His critics point to patterns that feel deeply suspicious when laid out together, from opponents selected at precisely the right moments in their careers, to pacing inside fights that feel strangely cooperative instead of brutally competitive, to a public confidence that sometimes sounds less like a fighter embracing risk and more like a marketing strategy being flawlessly executed. Supporters, on the other hand, point out that he trains relentlessly with legitimate coaches, takes real fights against actual boxers, and keeps stepping back into the ring again and again, which is honestly more than most loud internet personalities would ever dare once the gloves start flying back with real force and real consequences. Both sides are holding pieces of the truth, because Jake Paul is at once a trained athlete putting in serious work and a deliberately crafted product that has been carefully built and sold. Those two realities can exist at the same time, sharing the same space without cancelling each other out or making either one a lie. Still, the scripting accusations keep resurfacing like a pop-up ad you can never fully close, no matter how many times you hit the X. Because once people decide a fighter is a brand first and a boxer second, they begin filtering everything through that belief, reading every move as calculated performance instead of genuine competition.
Would have won, everyone would have known it was rigged. He couldn't win that fight. So he said, let me get to round 5. Let me get there, because if I can get there, then everyone can make money. And the second round 4 hit, Anthony was ready. It was so obvious. It's so gross to me that I participated in this because I wanted to see him get knocked out, and that's exactly what he knows to be true. Most people want to see.
The Mike Tyson angle pours pure gasoline onto this already raging fire, because there is no quicker way to ignite the internet and spark endless arguments than taking a legendary name with decades of history and dropping it into a modern influencer machine, then asking everyone to act like this is totally normal and should be taken at face value. The internet saw that fight first as a cultural moment, a piece of entertainment history, and only second, maybe even third, as an actual sporting event, which meant it was always going to be judged by spectacle standards instead of strict boxing criteria. When you build something that massive, that aggressively promoted, that drenched in nostalgia and social media hype, people are not tuning in expecting a technical masterclass. They are expecting a show, an experience, something they can talk about, clip, share, and turn into content of their own. The problem is that once you set those expectations, once you frame it as this massive cultural moment, you are quietly setting the stage for disappointment, because reality almost never lives up to the fantasy people construct in their minds. And that is exactly what happened here. People carried these detailed, dramatic expectations of what they were about to witness. And when reality failed to match that imagined version, they went looking for an explanation for why they felt so underwhelmed.
People saying, congratulations to Jake Paul for being brave to step in the ring with Anthony Joshua. Not many people will want to step in the ring with Anthony Joshua. Let me tell you something. If someone paid me $80 million to fight Anthony Joshua, I'm stepping in there tomorrow, right? No training, no nothing. I'm leaving straight from work. I fly to Miami and I'll get my jaw broken for $80 million, no problem. And I'm sure
When the fight failed to live up to everyone's fantasy of vintage destruction and the explosive knockout they had been picturing, some viewers instantly reached for the simplest and most comfortable explanation for their disappointment, deciding it must have been staged, fixed, and quietly arranged behind closed doors. Online whispers about leaked scripts and pre-planned moments spread like wildfire across platforms because they offered a clean, satisfying story that felt easier to accept than the messy reality where age, timing, conditioning, and strategic decisions can naturally lead to underwhelming results without any conspiracy at all. This is where the conversation turns deliciously ironic, almost comedic in its contradictions, because people accuse Jake Paul of manufacturing fights and controlling outcomes while simultaneously manufacturing entire documentaries inside their own heads using screenshots, out-of-context clips, and pure vibes. A supposed leak starts circulating through Discord servers and Reddit threads. Someone claims it predicted key moments with suspicious precision, and suddenly a huge portion of the audience treats that as definitive proof instead of coincidence or elaborate fan fiction. The logic seals itself shut and becomes impossible to challenge, because any denial from official sources is instantly framed as part of the cover-up, and any gaps or uncertainty are taken as evidence that the truth is too dangerous or too damaging to reveal. The rumor does not actually need to be true or backed by evidence, because it only needs to be compelling and align with the story people already want to believe. And in the modern attention economy we live in, compelling almost always beats correct, nearly every single time, without exception.
Get a load of money to knock Jake Paul's spark out. That's it, mate. I want to see him get chinned. I do. And if we're going to get paid a fortune for the pleasure, sign me up. That's it. That's it. You know, I mean, I'm kind of past the days of trying to spin it to you. Better off saying to the fan, why are you doing this? For the money and for the giggles. That's really what it is. I said to him, this ain't magic, mate. This guy could take your head.
The skepticism is never personal. It's never really about Jake Paul as a person, because it runs deeper, it's structural, and that structure is simple. Anthony Joshua has lived inside a world of real professional danger and elite-level combat that Jake Paul has not consistently walked through during his boxing journey. The idea that this moment could exist as both a legitimate sporting contest with real rules and real consequences, while also being a carefully controlled spectacle built for maximum entertainment, is exactly why people argue so loudly and so passionately, because each side is operating with a completely different definition of what legitimacy even means in this situation. On one side of the argument, legitimacy is about rules, proper sanctioning from boxing authorities, legally binding contracts, and the full legal framework of professional boxing, because those systems exist for one reason: to stop the sport from collapsing into scripted entertainment like professional wrestling. On the other side of the debate, legitimacy is about competitive purity, real unpredictable danger where either fighter can lose, and that gut feeling that the outcome isn't being shaped or influenced by negotiations and financial arrangements before the bell even rings. Jake Paul's critics often say that even when something is technically legal and officially sanctioned, it can still be practically engineered through smart matchmaking and financial incentives, because you don't actually need a written script when you can simply choose the cast and quietly control the variables.
Paul has some big-ass balls, bro. No diddy. You know, it's just like to go in there with one of the best heavyweights to ever do it, Anthony Joshua, Olympian. You know, was he a gold medalist? Gold medalist. Wow.
2012.
That's what I'm saying. So, you know, my respects to, obviously, Jake, because, man, that took a lot, and he's robbing the bank, man. He's promoter.
Jake Paul's defenders fire back just as hard, saying no serious fighter willingly risks public humiliation, physical damage, or long-term career harm simply to grow someone else's brand or help someone else make money, because pride, reputation, and survival instincts aren't things you can buy cheaply, no matter how big the paycheck looks on paper. When a warrant gets sealed by court order and officials stay quiet beyond the bare minimum confirmations, that lack of detail turns into a blank screen, and people rush to project their own stories onto it, filling the silence with whatever explanation fits their existing beliefs the best. The public doesn't ask for patience or wait for official information, because patience doesn't trend on social media and it doesn't drive clicks, comments, or engagement. And that's exactly how old controversies get pulled back into the spotlight the moment a new one appears, even when they aren't directly connected. Even if these incidents are completely separate and share nothing legally or factually, they begin to feel linked in the public mind, because the audience experiences them as part of the same ongoing saga, the same long-running story arc that's been quietly building for years.
We're going to tune in, and guess what we got? Jake Paul getting knocked out. He also made a lot of fucking money, and we are all just consuming it. If you believe in astrology, you will know this to be true. I looked up his natal chart. It's mostly earth energy. Everything he's doing is a fucking act. It's an act. He doesn't act that way at home. I guarantee it. He is a Capricorn, Sun, Mercury, Venus, Libra, Mars, and a Taurus moon. There's no way he acts like
The so-called fleeing narrative latches onto that emotional bond because it paints everything as a sudden, cinematic escalation instead of a complicated overlap of unrelated problems. In the version racing across platforms, fresh reports about the Joshua situation appear out of nowhere. The internet explodes instantly, and Jake Paul is portrayed as deciding right then that he would rather be literally anywhere on Earth than standing inside the blast radius of this controversy. People casually throw around words like fleeing the country because it sounds far more dramatic and implication-heavy than simply traveling or going on a planned trip. And drama is the real currency everyone is exchanging here. The internet thrives on the idea of consequences rolling in like a storm, finally catching someone, because it turns reality into a movie with a neat, satisfying arc. And every movie has that unforgettable scene where someone tries to outrun the story itself. The truth, which often frustrates audiences because it lacks excitement, is that travel is completely normal for celebrities, professional fighters, and entrepreneurs who operate across multiple countries. And movement alone proves absolutely nothing about guilt or awareness of wrongdoing. Jake Paul's real problem isn't whether he's legally allowed to board a plane, because obviously he is, but whether the public will read a plane ticket as a confession or an admission of guilt. Once the internet collectively decides you're guilty of something, any attempt to live normally becomes suspicious, because optics turn into evidence in the court of public opinion. Staying looks like hiding in plain sight. Leaving looks like running from consequences. Speaking looks like spinning or damage control, which means you lose simply by playing along. That's the fundamental trap of fame at this level, because you don't actually control the narrative, no matter how strong your PR team is. You only feed it and hope to steer it somewhere less destructive. Every move, every word, every choice gets dissected through the lens the audience already picked. And once that lens locks in, changing perception is almost impossible. Fight-fixing accusations add a legal shadow that makes people practically salivate. Because the second sports betting and gambling money enter the conversation, the stakes jump from online drama to potentially serious legal consequences. When massive sums are wagered through legal platforms, manipulation isn't met with a slap on the wrist, because that would shatter trust in an ecosystem worth billions. That's exactly why promoters and officials fight the scripting narrative so aggressively. They aren't just defending one fight, they're protecting the credibility of sanctioned competition itself. They're not arguing with fans for fun, but because their entire business depends on people believing the contest is real enough to matter and worth paying for. At the same time, boxing has spent decades training fans to be skeptical. Its history is filled with controversies, questionable judging, and backstage maneuvering that make audiences watch cautiously. When people already distrust institutions, conspiracy theories spread faster, especially when they match emotional expectations. The scripted fight narrative grows louder when fans analyze training footage, physiques, and sudden improvements, opening the door to accusations fans love to debate. People speculate about substances, testing, and contracts because it gives them the illusion of insider insight. The danger is how fast speculation turns into certainty without evidence, where analysis becomes performance. Combat sports have always struggled with performance enhancement, but specific accusations still require proof, not vibes. Unfortunately, vibes outperform proof on social media. So the story keeps expanding. What makes this narrative go viral and dangerous is how it blends real reporting with rumor and dares audiences to tell them apart. There were documented reports of federal agents searching his property. That part is real. But there were also waves of speculation about arrests and secret deals that aren't facts, yet are shared with equal confidence. The internet loves redemption stories, but it loves downfall stories even more, because they offer moral closure. People want chaos to end with a lesson. Jake Paul has become a central character in a morality play about fame, influence, and attention replacing credibility. He's a symbol people project onto, for better or worse. And at this point, the story isn't about one man anymore. It's about what he represents to millions who've never